there's some really good questions that can come out of that. Our next speaker is Fran Callaghan, also from DCU, who uses my most favourite word in the title of his paper. He's talking about synergies. So I'll give you Fran.
Good morning, everybody. I'll be talking today about the establishment and evolution of the Research Communication Service in DCU in the last couple of years within the Research and Teaching Directorate. So there will be some overlap with what Lisa and Jack have been talking about. That's unavoidable, unfortunately. But I'll be concentrating more on the establishment of partnerships crucially outside of the library with other research supporting units or research active units in the university, and also highlighting some of the projects we've been involved with those units. And I've included a picture of some cats playing the blues, which always seems to go down well. The image is CC0, by the way, so there's no copyright harmed in the production of that slide. So just to give some background to the drivers for change in the research landscape in DCU over the past few years. First up, the DCU strategic plan, 2012-2017, which we're obviously coming towards the end of, was very research intensive and very research focused. The word research was mentioned 47 times, and I've just picked out a couple of the highlights here. In particular, by 2017, DCU will be recognised internationally as a research-intensive university. And also the last part there, one of the key deliverables is providing a broad range of research support services. So yeah, and over the course of that 5 years, the amount of funding incoming has increased significantly, and the number of research outputs and publications has increased significantly as well. So it was successful insofar as the research-intensive nature. Secondly, which was touched on earlier, is the Dc Incorporation Program. So over the past couple of years, 2 to 3 years, we've been incorporating DCU with other organisations. So we started off with 4 institutions. We now operate as 1 university, over 3 academic campuses, and over 2 academic libraries. The impact here is twofold, as Jack alluded to earlier, in terms of staffing. Whereas we had 4 organisational structures, we now have 1. It's 1 organisational structure. So there's been a lot of people moving and a lot of moving around and so on. The second impact is in terms of the volume and variety of research outputs now. As the Vice President for Research himself put it recently, the centre of gravity in DC research has changed. We would typically have been perceived as quite STEM-centric, but now 3 of the 5 faculties are humanities and social sciences. I'm going to skim over this slide for 2 reasons. First of all, it's a car crash of a slide, and secondly, it focuses on the changes and the kind of internal relationships between the 4 library directorates, which was something that Jack and Lisa were focusing on. I just had to leave it in there because it took me far too long to produce it, so I thought I'd get 30 seconds out of it. So back to the beginning, when I started in DCU, I started as a half-time IR manager. I was also half-time responsible for IR resources, which is kind of outside the scope of this presentation, but traditional research support was provided via the subject team, as you know, is typical of the time. So that's bibliometrics, literature surveys, so on and so forth. As the IR manager, the first project, which actually predates me personally, was the e-thesis submission project in 2008-2009, which is very much a library-driven project. With buy-in from graduate studies and registry, the postgraduate regulations were changed and the registry workflows were changed. And what we got was we started ingesting on a mandated basis the research theses as they were awarded. Soon after I started, we looked at a retrospective digitization project going back from 2008 to right back to 1985, which necessitated engaging the service of an external digitization service. Together, they delivered what we have now is an online thesis collection of just over 2,500, comprising 99% of our research theses. There's a handful we can't find, and so on and so forth. That's generated almost 2 million downloads and garnered 727 citations to 503 of those theses. I'm particularly fond of that last statistic as an open access advocate. There's only 2 sources for a DCU thesis, either the print version, which is in the archive, or the electronic copy, which is in the institutional repository. So we can say with some certainty that the 727 citations are due to the fact that the thesis collection is available online and open. Soon after that, the Dean of Graduate Studies presented to a European conference on the thesis digitization project, and Times Higher Education were there, and they wrote an article on it. That article was subsequently picked up by our university president, who was very, very pleased by this. When our university president is pleased, we're pleased. So while this was a great success, what we saw was that scope to do much more was limited, and that there were other research stakeholders that we weren't engaging with. Other research stakeholders, again, being research supporting units in the university. So we established the Research Communications Service in the Research and Teaching Directorate, still very much up in the air, as you've seen, with 2 FTE, and we maintained our relationships with Graduate Studies and Registry and our online thesis collection, and that's going nowhere now. It's a huge success. Soon afterwards, our first collaboration was with what we call the Research and Innovation Office, what people call the Research Office. They were tendering for a new research support system, and there was a few areas where they felt that the library could be helpful. So, I mean, what we wanted to do at this point was position the library as both expert on some areas and also open and amenable to partnerships with these other units. One of the areas they had question over was IR interoperability. We owned the IR, so we were happy to provide help on how an interface should work, what direction it should go in, what should be interfaced and so on, so we were happy to provide help there. The second thing was in abstracting and indexing services. They wanted their research support system to be able to harvest metadata, so on and so forth. So we were, at the time, expert in scopes and Web of Science, so we agreed to help out there. And finally, just in general terms of metadata as Serif, Dublin Core, what do they all mean? So we said, yeah, sure, we can help with the tender document in that regard as well. Sorry, to go back. So what we ended up at the situation there was we had so much input into the tender document. The research office asked us to sit in on the tender process, which anyone who's been involved in public procurement knows it's quite an onerous task, but we agreed. And soon afterwards, well, not soon afterwards, about a year and a half afterwards, we got a new research support system. About that time, the university appointed a research integrity officer, and one of their top priorities on starting was to embed research integrity training program for first-year postgrads. What they asked the library to input there was to deliver a module to new researchers on RDM best practices, why manage data, avoid claim to plagiarism, bad science, fraud, reproducibility, all of that kind of thing, and in a more practical sense, provide training on data management planning. For that, we use DMP Online. And we've just completed our second year of delivering that research integrity training program. Then most recently, at the end of last year, Invent, who's their intellectual property and enterprise engagement arm, asked us to input into they were redrafting the university intellectual property policy. We were delighted to be involved in this because it allowed us to bolt on open access statement onto an existing university policy and get an open access position in the university policy without having to do all of the heavy lifting associated with drafting policy. So we did that. We also gave some advice on copyright transfer agreements and the kind of arrangements around publishing. Most recently, that's the section from the university IP policy, which has just been adopted on the 31st of March, I believe. Most recently, we engaged with the Quality Promotion Office and the Research Office on the establishment of a bibliometrics working group. So what that entails is scope of SciVal training and for decision makers in the university, deans, associate deans for research, that kind of level, and then more general bibliometrics training for all career stage researchers, really. And then just really at the moment, this is just something we haven't even established, it's something we're just considering, is the establishment of an RDM working group to work with Information System Services, the Research Office and any other interested parties. We were emboldened by the successes of the bibliometrics working group, and we'd love to replicate that in RDM, and RDM is something that certainly needs input from a lot of university stakeholders. So that's really it. That's the kind of the thoughts for the future. I think that's interesting. A lot of that chimes with what Kieran was reporting on: systematic reviews, alternative metrics, open publishing. We're also looking at reviewing the IR and the whole research and team structure, as Jack and Lisa alluded to. So that's it. Thank you very much.